Mm.
Hello, and welcome to The Animates, the show for animators by animators. Today we have a little special thing going on. We have the Melissa Shim on with us today to answer our questions and yours. And we're also doing a bit of a new thing where we're doing a tag team interview. So we had some technical difficulties, but we got there eventually. And me and Henry are both going to be doing the interview. But it's not going to be an interview, it's going to be a chat.
It was mostly me, not me having the technical difficulties. So thanks, Elise, for setting everything up and figuring everything out.
It was a struggle, but we made it, I think. And just let us know if we have any technical audio difficulties, because I did some tests and they sounded okay, but it's always a bit crazy with us. So without further ado, I would love to show you Melissa's showreel. So here we go. Let's do this thing. This one, boop, and then this one. So from the beginning, have a look at this. Wow, that's a hell of a showreel. That's not bad.
It was fun. It was a lot of work.
Quick note, just as always with our off-tangent interviews, we're going to be spending about an hour quizzing Melissa on how she became so awesome and got into all these cool studios, which I'm going to go through the list of in a second, and prepare to be impressed, by the way. So we're going to do that, and it's going to be awesome. But if you guys also have any questions, feel free to put them up in the chat, and we will try and get to them at the end. Just do us a favor and put a big capital question thing beforehand and your question, and we will try and get to them. So, Melissa, are you ready? You ready for the interview?
Okay. I'll do my best.
So, God of War. What was it like working on that? On one of the biggest games, the biggest game, I think, of last year. Did you guys have any idea how successful it was going to be?
Me personally, I had no idea what I was walking into. I kind of joined, like, obviously when I interviewed, they couldn't tell me officially what they were working on.
Yeah.
But I obviously had a bit of an idea of what they were doing. The change in direction was a bit of a shock to me when I actually did start there. So like the way more grounded in reality and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So that was, even for me, that was like, oh, that's what I'm working on. Like, this is different. So it was a huge learning experience for me, I think, coming from a lot of projects that weren't as like heavily story based,
Mm-hmm.
and doing something. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, no, I hate interrupting people, but it's always hard with these. So have you always found that you've been a very story-driven person? You like working with cinematic-based things and story stuff, or was that kind of a new experience for you to try out?
I think that's something I've kind of come to realize more in these years, I think, because so I do enjoy like action animation and a lot of like body mechanic kind of stuff. So over the last like 5 years, I've been kind of like working my way towards that, like working on more stuff like that, and then coming onto this project.
I was like, poof.
Yeah, like when everything came together, and it was one of the games that I personally worked on that I actually wanted to play and enjoyed playing. It was like a bit of a realization for me that like, okay, I do enjoy games that are more based in stories. Like I do, I don't play a lot of video games these days, but when I do, it's usually either a simple phone game or I'm into like the Naughty Dog games, like games that have a narrative, and because I'm pretty bad with playing like action video games. I was never good at like first person shooters or anything like that. But it's definitely a more recent kind of realization. And then God of War, I think for me, has a good mix of like the two, the action stuff, and then the characters' personalities, and trying to infuse the two is kind of new to my career as well. So it's been nice, and it's nice to be able to kind of consciously realize that as well.
No, that sounds pretty great. I also completely understand what you mean about not having time to play games. I swear game developers are one of those people where it's like, oh, we love working on these games, and it's like, cool, don't you like play games like all the time? And it's like, well, we're so busy working on the games. We actually have a lot of time to play the games. But yeah, definitely. So you have a hell of a CV on you. How many years have you been working in the industry now?
I started in like mid 2002, so I'll be hitting my like 17th.
17
years this year.
Don't look older than me at all, so that's very impressive. Maybe I just age quickly. Cool.
My schooling was about 16 months after high school, so I got in pretty quick.
Yeah, and how did you first get interested in wanting to be an animator? Was that something that kind of hit you early on, or did you kind of fall into it?
It was in like late high school. I realized that it was something you could do,
Yeah.
I wanted to be like a math teacher back when I was young. And then in grade 10, I realized I wasn't that great at math.
Did you want to be a math teacher, or did your parents want you to be a math teacher?
That's the question.
No, actually, like I thought, I was like, oh, I kind of like math until I realized I wasn't great at it, and I probably don't like kids that much. Or like that whole idea of wrangling teenagers seemed difficult. When I thought about like, well, all my classmates are like a pain in the butt. They were great.
No, I had a similar thing where I was like, for ages, I was like, I'm going to be a doctor. And then I realized I was more in love with the idea of being a doctor than the practicality of being a doctor and actually needing to like science and that kind of thing. And
So in high school, we had like a film and TV kind of class. So we got to like work with like video cameras and stuff. And that was new when I was like in the more senior years of high school. And then Reboot, if anyone knows the old Reboot cartoon from like Mainframe back in like the mid-late 90s or whenever that was, like I fell in love with that show, and Mainframe also made like Beast Wars, and then I met like another student. She was like a year older than me in high school, and she told me about this local art school that taught animation, and I was like, oh, I'll go check it out. We had like a work experience week, but like you could go get like a part-time job somewhere, but the school offered this week to high school students to come and
that's cool.
Experience. Yeah, it was probably just a marketing thing on their end, because I never had a good part-time job growing up. So I went to the school and I, got an idea of what they offered. Like they taught film and audio and animation, 3D and stuff like that. So I told my parents about it and they, were like, yeah, you can do that. Even though probably secretly they were like, you should go to university.
I was going to ask, like, were your parents supportive of you wanting to go be in video games and be an animator and that kind of thing, or?
I think they were like,
they were secretly holding out for the math teacher roles. They were like, come on, baby, get that math teacher.
Get that bachelor's degree. No, they were like, I think, from if I look back, I feel like they were just like neutral supportive.
Yeah,
like
they were
yeah, they were like, okay, do you go do this? Then we'll support you. And I had mixture of probably like a good demo reel and timing and all that, and I managed to get like a job like 6 months after I finished school, kind of thing.
Sorry, so that was school. Where were you studying again?
The art school.
The art school, right. So is that like college, like in the UK, where it's not uni, but it's not normal school? It's like in between, right? The two?
So like my school is like a privately owned school, so it wasn't like accredited or anything. So I don't have like a degree, unfortunately. But they gave Henry actually went to the same school as me, and so we both came out with like a diploma. Right, so
you came out with an animation demo reel, or was it like an arts?
Oh, sorry, yeah. It was like I went with a digital animation track.
Okay, wow, that's cool.
Yeah, so the first year, each semester was about 4 months, and I did like the 2 years consecutively. I didn't take a summer break. So the first year was kind of like more foundational. They taught you like basics of drawing and perspective and history stuff a little bit. Basics of like the 3D programs, and then the second year was when you chose like your specialization, whether you were classical or digital, and then but the digital, like it was called a digital animation track kind of thing, but like there were a number of students that like realized partway that they preferred modeling and stuff. So I think even the school at the time, I mean, these were early days of these animation schools. I think that they didn't have like these specific tracks of like you can specialize in one or the other.
When I was there, I think it was like after first year you kind of start specializing. So in your second year, so that's kind of what we started going, or when I started going towards animation. Was that the same for yourself, or like, and how did you decide to kind of go to animation versus modeling and all that?
Well, I was always focused on animation personally. Like it was what I got in to do, and luckily what I was decent at the time. So but we had to make everything from scratch. So I did get to model texture and do all that, and luckily I did a good job of that because I cannot model anything now. But back then,
no, I love that we still get schools that do that. My uni does that, where the first year that you kind of get to do a bit of everything, just in case that you're like, I'm dead set on doing this thing, but then you get there and you try some other stuff, and I think it's great in two ways, because one, you might find something else that you like better, but for me, I wanted to get in for animation, and I was like, well, these things are cool, but I'm still sticking to my guns. But a lot of other people find other passions that they're like, oh, actually, I'm much better at modeling, I prefer it, blah, blah, blah. And also because it gives you kind of more skills that you can apply in the industry, and having that knowledge of how other people around you work, I think is always super helpful. So, some people see it as like, well, if I know what I want to do, why would I do all these other things? But I think it's super helpful in the long run.
Yeah, it's oh, sorry. Did my computer die?
No, I think we still got you.
You're still here.
Oh, sorry.
Don't get away that easy.
My screensaver started going on. Yeah, I definitely agree that having a broader, amount of knowledge about how things work is super handy. Yeah. But it's also cool that there's all these focus schools online and everything.
Right. Yeah.
That you can just be like, I do want to just be an animator, because the way they teach animation since these schools developed is very different than how it was taught back then, I think.
Yeah.
You know, so it's come a long way, and you know, I kind of wish that I had that available to me when I was young, you know, at that age, because then I could have just gone super hard into it. But it was a much later till I went into some of the online school to kind of like brush up on
Oh, that's cool. So you did that in your like spare time? You were like doing the online courses, or?
Yeah, like when I lived in Europe, I did like a semester of one of the online schools, and then when I moved back to Canada, I actually took like 9 months off where I was like, I'm not going to work and I'm just going to do like
wow, hardcore
3
learning mode. Yeah.
Yeah. Luckily, oddly enough, I managed to get like a part, like EA let me come back and work like part time, which was kind of awesome, right? I got to work there 3 days a week and get out of the house and kind of slowly work back into the workforce after being like unemployed for a little bit.
Yeah.
And I found I think it actually helped me focus on the school a little bit better, because when I was just like in my room like every day,
it's hard, man.
I was just like, I'm going nuts. Like this is
yeah.
So Melissa, you mentioned you took school a semester of school when you were in over in Europe, and another semester back in Canada. Like, were they the same schools, or which schools were those?
So I've done a little bit of Animation Mentor and iAnimate. The iAnimate one I did was the first time I did like an online school, and that was when I was in Europe. That was rough, I think, because of the time zone difference a little bit. And just doing online school while working full time is pretty rough to begin with.
Yeah.
You know, like I'm probably got a lower threshold of stress management than some other people might have, kind of thing. So it's, you know, it's
tough. It's really tough.
But that's actually like after when my time with EA the first time was ending, I think Keith Lango at the time he would take in like a handful of students and like give them and mentor them for like a 4-week, 5-week program.
Wow.
So that was the first thing I did, like when I was kind of transitioning out of EA. And then like a year or so later was when I did iAnimate. And then I came back to Canada with the plan to do like the last 3 semesters of Animation Mentor. And then I think a year or so later, I did another semester of the games track at iAnimate. So I kind of like dabbled in both, so for different reasons. So
what was your first job in the industry? Where did you start?
I ended up getting on the baseball team. So I kind of like fell into video games. I didn't even know, like it wasn't on my radar at all that you know that games was an option. I was all about like, I'm gonna work in TV kind of thing, because Vancouver at the time I think was pretty big in the TV development stuff.
Yeah.
But EA, the team I ended up on, they were like working with our school a little bit, like looking at student reels. So they
were like, we want her.
Yeah. It's a bit of a funny story because like they almost threw out my reel without looking at it, because I don't want to like too negative, but our school didn't have the best reputation at the time.
Wow.
So like when they saw like the name on my reel, they were like, but and this was on VHS tape back then. So like nothing was digital back then. So I had like my package that I gave him was like VHS tape as well as like a printed portfolio. So I had like all my kind of drawings and the 2D work I'd done during school. And luckily I had like a nice title page, because in high school you make title page for everything. So I had a title page with like my characters rendered on their like front and center, and they saw that and they decided to give it a chance when they saw that. So it was kind of lucky that I even thought to do that to help me.
So that's really interesting to me, because it sounds like you succeeded in some ways despite of certain reputations of certain schools. So what do you think it was that helped you get to the point where you did have a an amazing reel off the bat, you know, where other people might not have? Do you think that was like some of your personality coming through and helping you, or do you just think you just worked your butt off to get that, or do you think there was something else that kind of aided you to get to the point where they were like, well, no, this one's special, we need to get her on the team?
Right. It's hard looking back, like, you know, like sometimes I'll watch my student reel and I'll still think, it's okay. It's not bad for its time. Like it doesn't like demonstrate amazing animation. Like it's very basic. But I think I did a pretty good job as like packaging the whole reel. Like it was like a short film, you know, we were all like supposed to make our own little short film rather than these animation exercises kind of thing. There was no dialogue in it or anything like that. It was just like these weird or cute characters that I luckily modeled, you know, well enough and animated not too janky, like, you know, and it had a story kind of thing. So so I think that like also had a bit of like my humor in it.
Yeah, your like personality shone through.
Yeah, I think to an extent it was. Like it was literally like I was trying to think up the idea, and I remember I was like in one of my classes and Weezer came out with like the Green album at the time.
Okay.
And,
okay.
and the single, the Green album. So like Island in the Sun was the single that was hot at the time.
Okay.
And I doodled this character in my notebook.
Yeah.
And one day I was looking at it and I turned to my coworker and my classmate, and I was like, what if he found a dead body? And that was how I got the idea for my student reel. And it actually had like 4 scenes, and obviously, you know, everyone's like, yeah, I'm gonna make this epic thing, and then you're like, okay, I can only do like this much of this thing. So luckily I managed to like contain it. So I think, the story, the humor, the timing, you know, doing the printed portfolio helped, and the fact that like the VA guys were like, you know, working with our school kind of thing. So
I think that's one of the things I'm starting to understand more nowadays, that we were looking at demo reels last week and giving critiques, and one of the things that stood out was when people didn't just have decent animations but also put some of themselves into their animations and gave things character and gave things humor, and kind of you got a sense of who that person was as a person as well as an animator. So I do feel like there are certain people where when they put that extra effort in, you get that extra sense of personality that it just wins people over. So like if you had 2 identical show reels and they both had the same level of quality of animation, you could still win people over with having that extra level of humor or that extra, you know, feeling of good acting or this interesting thing. You know, they just haven't done just a walk, they've done this person's walk, and it's their influence that pushes that little thing enough to, oh, I'm so sorry, I don't know why my phone's going crazy, to make them stand out. And it sounds like that's kind of one of the things that pushed the needle for you.
Like especially like working at Sony, like I don't have much involvement in our hiring process, but whenever I talk to like my lead or my director, like and we're looking at like people's tests or demo reels, often they gravitate to the work that does have personality. Like our animation test is pretty tough. Like it's a 3-part test.
Wow, 3-part, huh?
Yeah, and the times that we've like looked at like everyone that did get hired, sometimes we'll like bring up a test and look at them, and my leads will always be like, oh, I really like this acting one because character did this, like it showed personality rather than like a generic action. So that definitely helps to make things stand out. So like don't make just a generic walk cycle, give it an attitude or whatever.
So you've worked on some pretty cool things that I'm going to rattle off to embarrass you over the last couple of years. So if I've got this right, multiple EA sport games, Company Heroes, Hitman, Mortal Kombat, Just Cause 3, Gears of War, and now God of War. So are you just super lucky, or like, I mean, you've worked on...
calculated. When I was at Relic, and I was on Company of Heroes, the other team was working on Dawn of War. And like after coming on to God of War, I was just like, damn it, like I should have gotten on Dawn of War. I would have had like 3 of War games.
Yeah, that's true.
That would have been amazing.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, they didn't need more animators this time. So I think so. Like half of my career was on EA Sports, and while that was like an amazing like learning experience for like just being, you know, working professional and all that, and then all the tech that EA has is just like crazy. You know, sports wasn't where my heart was, and like so going to Hitman was like, oh, a really nice change of pace to try something different.
Yeah. And
then leaving that project, I actually was trying to get into like visual effects, like film.
Yeah.
That's why I did animation mentoring. And that didn't quite work out, like for various reasons, whether I didn't try hard enough to like really just like spam my wheel everywhere, or like I didn't have the network to like get in, because our industries are, you know, quite network heavy kind of thing, like who you know helps a ton. But after that, I was like, okay, I kind of took a bit of lead from one of my old leads, who he was like, I'm gonna make like an online presence kind of thing.
Right. Okay.
Right. So I kind of like hooked onto that. I need to work on my reputation, right? And so a bit of a goal was like, okay, I'm going to try these different studios around Vancouver and see which I like, see what kind of projects I like, and let it be known that I'm good to work with. You know, generally, I'm hoping I'm good to work with. You know?
So when you say building your online presence and your reputation, how did you go about doing that? Was it mostly just was it like an online social media type thing, or was it just you wanted to move companies and try and have people that could vouch for you? Or
yeah, it was a bit of both.
Okay.
So like so my old lead, Simon Unger, he was getting into Twitter and stuff like that, so I kind of like jumped on that train. And that's how I met like a lot of these guys that like run the boot camp and everything at GDC, and those guys are like super amazing.
Can't wait for that.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun. Don't you worry.
I've not been before, and everyone keeps telling me about it. And
that crew, like everybody that's been so involved in that community, you know, it like blows my mind every time, kind of thing. How like supportive they are and everything. So part of it was like getting to know these people outside of my little bubble, because like working at EA for that long, my network was just EA people, and a lot of EA people have, you know, moved on, so like now they're at other studios, so that's cool. But you know, once I started also working at other studios in town, I was like, oh, there's all these other animators and all these never run into, like I met Henry on a ski trip.
Oh, really?
Randomly, and we were like, "You're an animator?" And now we're like buddies. Go ahead.
So you mentioned like kind of you joining Twitter and kind of building your brand and meeting other animators. Like, would you give, or what advice would you give to like for someone who is starting to do that as well, and they want to kind of link up or network with more other animators? How would someone go and do that?
I think like Twitter seems to be like one of the better options to do it. This is part of my like mini GDC talk.
Yeah, exactly.
But like we're getting insider sneak peek.
Yeah.
But yeah, Twitter's been interesting because it's a casual kind of like space you can just kind of like latch into and like kind of lurk about, and like if you want to engage you can, whereas you don't have to like add someone to your like personal network, which I find is
Yes.
off-putting to me, honestly.
Yes.
Like, please don't add me to Facebook, people I don't know.
Yeah.
But Twitter is like, you know, it's like your public persona, and in this case, often our professional persona. It's a bit tricky too when you're like working with studios and you're talking about work-related stuff. Like, it does get a little bit weird, I find, but like, I think
my
generally,
opinions are my own and does not reflect my company, blah blah blah.
I'm not
Please don't sue
representing my
me.
company. Yeah, but I think like when I was kind of like learning all this, and I'm not, I wasn't a very outgoing or social kind of person, you know, like I was very shy, you know, 10, 15 years ago. And it's taken a lot for me personally to kind of put myself out there, as well as just like reach out to people. Even though like I felt really like weird doing it, because I'm like, they don't know me. Why are they going to talk to me? You know? So I think to an extent, as long as you're polite and you know, you respect the people around you and stuff, like it's okay to like send an email and like touch, you know, like just reach out, and like whether you have questions or you just want to have a conversation or whatever, like, you know, like this kind of thing. I think generally people want to help, but like, you know, we're all busy folks too at the same time. Like, so like, you know, like I kind of wish when I was younger, I was more engaged in the side of networking, I guess. So, but you know, you kind of just learn that as you go, I guess.
No, I 100% agree. And I mean, we're obviously slightly biased because almost everyone we find is on Twitter, and how we founded the show is through Twitter. But the only reason why that's how we find people is because trying to find animators who don't have some sort of social presence is quite hard to get in contact with them. And like Facebook is too personal. And Instagram, I don't use it because it doesn't have like a web version and doesn't support GIFs very well, and I'm like, go away, I don't get you. And then LinkedIn is also like too professional in some ways, and I feel like Twitter is like a nice balance of casual, not like in your face. You can follow whoever you want, and it's not like a you have to follow me back thing. So you can follow all these really cool, inspiring people like Melissa, whose thing I'll post up in a sec. I think it's Shim Shady, right?
Shim Shady, yeah.
Shady.
No, that's the name I write for other things. No, I'm slapping a bass. I'm a big Paul Rudd fan, so. Okay,
cool. And you know, do you like post a lot of your work up, like work in progress stuff and that kind of thing?
So I'm not like the most engaged on Twitter. Like I kind of have phases where like I'll be like super on there, and then months where I'm like barely able to keep up with what's going on. I mean, there's so many people on Twitter now to follow. Like I can't process that much information. I'm getting old.
But, you know, going to GDC and all that kind of thing.
But now there's even like, there's all these Discord groups, like you guys have your own now, and state and all that. So there's all these other platforms popping up where people can, you know, engage with each other, getting feedback or like asking questions and just building on the community. So that's been really cool to see, even though I'm not particularly like heavily involved with any of them. But I tend to use Twitter like for random thoughts that nobody cares about probably, or posting my work to, you know, show off a couple brag a little bit, and you know, post memes and jokes kind of thing. So I you know, it for me it's a variety of, it's an outlet to use. Mostly for like career related stuff.
Yeah.
And a little bit of like public personality stuff. So
it was awesome you posting all those like animated GIFs and of those memes that you were doing, like with those God of War characters.
Wait, that was you that did all those?
No. There's like a whole bunch of us. So like I don't know who came up with it first, but it was definitely like and Jack Steiner. They were collaborating on the first few like early on, and then I saw him working on it. I got jealous. I want to make some. So I kind of went rogue a little bit, and then I didn't get fired, obviously, but they had to like rein it in a little bit, or rein me in.
Mm-hmm.
But like the studio really kind of embraced it. Obviously, we're under a huge corporation. We got to be a little bit more mindful of what we do. But like the fact that like the team like itself loves it, like it's been cool to see. Like personally, like I'm just like I love that we don't take it too seriously.
Yeah.
Like it's quite a seriously toned game generally. Like, but then the fact that we can have fun with the characters is, there's limits obviously. So, but and then knowing that like Corey supported, a lot of the ideas was really cool. So we've over like the latter part of last year, we made a bunch like a lot of other animators who were into it. Like we just like be like, yeah, we'll make this one.
Yeah, got it, me.
Get into the schedule kind of thing. The production fully supported it, so that was great.
So, yeah, I'd love to know. Sorry, Henry. So, you've obviously networked well. You've kept yourself learning, I think, is something to touch on as well, right? So
Sure.
you've been connected. You've gone to GDC and stuff. You have tried to put yourself out there as a presence, but then you also have been, you wouldn't have gotten into these really cool companies without having an amazing demo reel.
Right.
And having great skills. So where do you think you managed to get that? Are you the sort of person that will do a full day's work and come home and do personal work? Or do you think it's having taken that time out to do the extra courses? Or do you think it's just that you've been in the industry 17 years and it's part of the process?
It's a mixed bag for me. Like after the last time I did online school while working, I was like, I'm never doing this again because I got so stressed out.
Okay.
And I wasn't even like working overtime or anything at the time, but my personality, I think, fear of failing, and not hard to admit to, but to say publicly. But I think it's good to kind of like put these things out there that it's, we all have our kind of struggles that can stop us from doing things. And for me, like I have to really fight with like myself almost.
Imposter syndrome.
Imposter syndrome, or like just like I'm not good enough even doing this, and just find a way to overcome those things. So like I don't usually come home to animate personal work anymore. Like back then when I was doing the courses, like I find personally I need goals set, or like something, what's the word? Something to hold me accountable for it, kind of thing. Otherwise I'm not necessarily going to do it. As much as like I might get inspired like at like 2:00 in the afternoon at work, I'll be like, oh, I should go.
Oh, like, sorry, you cut out. What was that thing you just said?
Like sometimes I'll get like inspired in the middle of a work day, and I'll be like, I should go home and do this art thing, and then I'll get home and I don't want to. Oh, sorry, my screensaver keeps coming on. I gotta move the mouse every minute.
We're all good.
But yeah, for me, it was, I think, definitely a drive of wanting to work on bigger projects, I guess, that like I was looking for what would fulfill me, because you do spend 40 hours of your week at work, and I seem to tie myself to my career a bit more than maybe I should. I don't know. So if I'm going to spend that much time at work, it should be something that I generally enjoy and challenges me. And I didn't know it was going to be Sony, like that's just where it went, kind of thing, and cool. But like, I knew I started to know I liked a certain type of animation. So I started doing that animation.
At home or in work?
with the online courses, so like kind of at home, like that would inspire me. And then I'm looking at studios or projects that did that kind of stuff, like getting onto. I left a contract to go to Mortal Kombat because I was like, oh, this is gonna be fun. Like there's a lot of fighting and stuff, right?
Yeah.
So I getting that was like one of the big steps I think that helped me get here. So definitely, like, if you have a clear idea of what you enjoy, then it's going to lead you to more of that stuff.
Yeah. No, I think that's a great point to make, because I feel like there's sometimes this impression or idea that you, like, I mean, obviously when you're a student, you have certain things where you're just trying to get to a base level of animation where you're employable, and that's great. But then after that, I feel like sometimes people are like, you should be aiming towards this thing. And that's not necessarily what people want to be doing. And I feel like if you keep just animating what you enjoy animating, you will eventually lead to projects and work that is based on those things, like, people can be like, you need to be working on emotional cinematics, but if you don't want to work on emotional cinematics, making a whole reel that's based on emotional cinematic pieces is only going to lead you to more work doing that stuff. Whereas if your whole thing is doing super exaggerated, fight sequences, then freaking do it. Like, I was with someone and they had a really cool idea about it. They were like, your work's your work and you have to do a great job at that. But if what you're doing in your day job is not what you want to be doing, by all means, use that inspiration, go home, go do stuff on the weekend that's what you actually want to be doing, because that will lead you to projects where you're actually spending your full day doing stuff that is super fulfilling. And it sounds that's kind of like what you were doing, where you were like, this is cool, but it's not quite what I wanted, so I'm gonna fuel that energy into starting to work towards, you probably had like a ton of offers that you turned down because you knew that you were still aiming towards something else. So while that could have been a good offer, maybe you were like, this isn't quite what I set out to be doing, so I'm gonna make sure I'm focused on accepting offers and going down roads that will lead you to doing what you want to be doing. Does that make sense? That was so long-winded.
I'm definitely like that. That's something I even touch on my GDC thing. So I like, this one thought I had was basically, I want to be able to choose the work rather than have to take a job because I need a job.
Right.
And like you mentioned, obviously when you're starting out, like fresh out of school, you might just take whatever job. But whatever job, it's like they say, you get a B shot, you make that B shot awesome, right? Like you want to be great to work with. Like you could, just like the demo reel thing where like two people have the same quality of animation, but one has personality. You also want to treat yourself that way. You want to be the best, worker you can be, but also be great to work with. Like, people that are the same skill level, if one's like not fun to work with, they're going to choose the other person. So
especially in games.
So like the industry's so small, like you gotta, like, that's why the whole reputation was like, I just want to be known that I can be trusted.
Yeah. Because people talk and
deliver.
you don't want to be that person where someone's like, oh, hey, don't you know this person? Do you want them to come work here? And they're like,
exactly. And I think
they're a good animator, but you don't want to be that
ultimately,
go ahead.
Someone that people want to work with, right? Like that's huge, right? Yeah. So you're spending so much time. Sorry, you're spending so much time at work with these people. Like you want them. You don't want to. You want to be able to work well with them.
Yeah, for sure. And I think there's times in people's lives and careers where like you're not a good person to be around. Like I'm sure at some point like people hated me or like I don't work with but like I think that's part of like life growth, like self-realization and self-awareness. Like you can look back and see like, oh, okay, this is why this happened or whatever. And
did you have experiences like that where you changed what kind of person you were to like to work with because of certain did you have certain things happen where you worked a certain way and you were a certain kind of person at work, and then maybe something happened and you were like, maybe I need to work on that as... Yeah, because I have had that.
Yeah, I think we can all like go through a phase like that, like
where you kind of
like
get some self-awareness.
Yeah, like when I'm like young, I didn't have as much self-awareness as I did now. Like I mean, like I'm not saying like people without self-awareness is a negative thing, but I think it really will go through kind of thing.
Could you talk a bit about something that you did change of how you are to work with, or is that too much?
Like I have to, I think, be mindful of like when things get rough, not to be too grumpy about it. Like
okay,
you know, like
okay.
like we all have ups and downs.
Deep breath.
Yeah, and like being able to like step away, know where your boundaries and your limits are, and if you're like, I need to go home and have a mental break before you like you explode at someone because you're stressed out. Like that's always a good thing to keep aware of, because you know, like this is a tough industry at times, and we're all only human. So, you know, being aware of where your mental, physical, emotional limits are, like, is gonna, you know, help everyone else around you, kind of thing.
Yeah. I think maybe. Sorry. No, I'm just gonna round off your point, and then you can ask a question. But
okay,
yeah, no, I 100% is maybe even being more connected with the world, and being part of social media, and being part of people that go out and go to things like GDC and EGX and all this kind of stuff is one of the things that helps train you to be self-aware, because you have to be respectful of how you're coming across to people and also how your work's coming across to people. So I guess it's like a twofold thing where you can be self-aware about what quality your work is in, but also what kind of impression you're leaving on people. And I always think it's interesting to see how people describe you as someone to work with, and like what the first words they say are. Like if people say they're interesting, it's like okay, how are they interesting? Like, or like, oh yeah, they're a fun personality. It's like like what kind of fun? Like, are we, you know? But you know, you want those words to come up where they say, you know, you're one of the hardest workers in the room, or you're super dependable, or you always put everything into it. And I think starting to build that kind of reputation is really cool. But sorry, what were you gonna say, Henry?
Oh no, sorry, I was just gonna continue on that point, Melissa, when you were saying now, like when you get into like a stressful situation, you kind of just take perspective on things, and maybe you could take a break or so. Like, is there kind of any other, or like what is there anything else that you normally do when things kind of get like really stressful, or if there's something that's just quite not working your way? Kind of what would you say to your younger self, I guess, of kind of how to handle this?
You stole my line.
That's still
You stole my line.
Yeah, I'm learning from you, Elise.
Damn it.
I mean, this is something I'm still like trying to get better at myself, but I think a big part, especially coming out of this project, is like communication, like talking to your leads and your producer or manager, letting them know that you're stressed, and finding out what kind of support they can give you. Like if they tell you to go home, like go home, like listen to them, even though if you're like, I still got this workload. If they're telling you to go home, go home.
Yeah. It's almost like listening to the advice of people who've been around for a while is a good thing.
Yes. There's a certain amount of wisdom you pick up years in your life.
Yeah.
But
I heard a really good quote that was something like an intelligent man learns from his mistakes, but a wise man learns from the mistakes of others. And I kind of feel like that about this show, where it's like, if you hear the same thing enough times, you know it's got some truth to it. It's like if one person says it out of 10, it's like, okay, well, maybe that's just their experience. But if everyone says the same thing, like don't be an asshole and like put yourself out there and all these kind of things that we do here come back to us, it kind of just cements. Okay, maybe that's something I should try and take on board, and I love that that we get to talk to people like you that have had this amazing successful career and get to learn from people like you that are out there doing the thing.
I think even like the mistakes we make, like in life and work and whatever, like there's always a learning you can take from it. Like, like don't always look at it as a complete negative. Like, see what you can take and learn from it.
Yes, absolutely. To add to Elise's quote there, I think one that I kind of heard that was similar is learn like from other people's mistakes, not because you won't make those mistakes yourselves, but for when you do, you'll know kind of how to handle them. And so I think that's really important. Yes, because most likely we'll run into the same mistakes as the people who have walked the path before us, right? So yeah,
definitely.
Are there any mistakes you've learned from, you think?
I need to like be better at like going home at a certain, like if I'm I'm going home at time, go home at time, and separate the work from the life kind of thing. It's tough, like as an artist, I guess we identify with our work, right? We want it to be the best. So like if you're not putting in the best, then you start to feel shitty about yourself, right? So it's like you gotta separate that a lot more, I guess. I mean, different personalities. Like I'm kind of tied too much to that animation I work on, even though it's like it's not mine technically. It's this company's animation. So like when they change it, don't take offense.
Yeah,
it's just work kind of thing. So.
It's being proud of the end product of what's in the game and being part of making the game cool, rather than having something that's your thing and it's mine. It's mine and I worked on it. And it's like no, that's not how this works. You're part of it.
Like I definitely still need to keep an eye on that person. Like make sure I don't get upset during a review meeting or something like that. So yeah, but I think exercise is great. If you can keep active, that'll keep you healthy. Don't write off the idea of therapy if you ever need it. Sometimes you just need to vent to someone. A professional is going to be the best option for that. Oh, we lost to Henry.
He's hiding because he's gone to therapy.
I mean, taking care of yourself first is, obviously one of the most important things. And if you take care of yourself, then you're going to deliver better in your other aspects of life. So, but sometimes easier said than done, sometimes things just get overwhelming and you don't learn how to deal with it, I guess. I don't know what I'm talking about.
No, man, it's great. I want to hear more about it. So it sounds like this is something you've had to take on board, about taking care of yourself, because you sound like the sort of person that really puts everything into your work, and there's got to be a point that's got to give, and you can't just keep working till midnight every night and expecting that to be something you can keep doing. So the idea that you're saying something you've got to improve on is to stop working. I think that's something that I've had to learn with the whole burnout thing, where it's like, you think, oh, if I work super late, that's helpful. And you've got to change your mindset into, just because I'm working on long hours doesn't mean I'm getting the quality I need. And if I actually went home and rested, I would actually get more done, quicker, better, that kind of thing. It's something that I had to learn. Did you find like that kind of thing?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's been more in the forefront of my life recently, and communicating that with my leads and peers, and making sure we're all on the same page and I have their support too. I think that helps a long way. Like if you can get the support from your team to understand, where your boundaries are at and your capabilities are, then in the long term, when you're like, hey, I'm overwhelmed now, they'll be, hopefully equipped to help you out, whether it's adjusting production.
I've gotten so much better as well at seeing where people at work are struggling. They'll get that, they get paler.
Really?
They get the bags under their eyes, and they're like, yeah, we should do the thing, and you're like, you don't seem as lively as usual. You've been okay there, buddy? And it's
definitely checking in with people.
they're your
like,
team, and
okay.
you're only as strong as the weakest person in your team or whatever, and you can't carry other people's work for them, but you can try and be like, oh, do you need anything, and yeah, no, that's super important. So I think that's a really lovely message to send. But I think we've taken up enough of your time. So what I usually do at this point, unless you've got any other quick questions you want to ask Henry.
No, but there's some questions from the chat.
We will be doing those right
okay,
after this.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, so just really quick, we kind of said it anyway, but if you had to give yourself some advice from when you were just getting started or 10 years ago or that kind of thing, if you could go back and speak to yourself when you were younger, is there any advice you would give to a younger version of yourself?
I think probably a lot of what I've said today.
Yeah.
I think it's, for me personally, it's
confidence.
Doubting myself,
Yeah.
you know, like when I was applying for the Sony job, I was like, why did they hire me?
Yeah.
Actually, me and Henry almost like applied for the job too. We were almost up against each other.
Oh, really?
So who knows? Maybe he would have gotten it over me.
No. The right person got the job.
But like, definitely, like for me, it would have been to have more faith in my own decisions and talent, and also keeping in check that like there's always someone better than you. You know, there's always room to grow. So like, don't get yourself down that you're not the best or you're not there yet or wherever. You know, like that. It's all little steps. Like everybody at work has different strong points, obviously, and that's why teams work, right? Like if everyone was good at the same thing, it wouldn't be a team, right? So, so I think for me personally, it's a lot about that and like working on my social skills, I guess. Like I think back to the time I did my first interview, I'm like, how did I get that? Like I was definitely not like that back then. So, and I'm still pretty awkward. So, but
you're doing live interviews, so you can't be. And you're doing GDC talks, so
I'm studying right now. Oh my god. But I think like being yourself and letting your personality show, you know, like helps. Like because I find like you'll gravitate to teams that you jive with. You know, you might be like, oh, I feel like family here. So. With other teams, you might be like, you know, like it's great, but I don't like feel like I fit in.
Every studio has their own culture, and you got to see which one you fit in. I guess. Yeah.
And I think there was a like for me when I was like bouncing around studios a bit, like I hope this doesn't like come off as a negative thing, but I kind of like put studios on pedestals. And like, but really, like all studios have their own problems and in different ways. So it's like, don't, you know, you got to keep grounded basically and like, you know,
find which problems you're okay with and which ones you're
basically. Which problems can you live with for 40 hours a week?
Great. Well, I'm gonna do like a really quick like recap of all the stuff you've said as like a little. Don't forget all these cool points that you've mentioned. So just correct me if I get anything wrong. But, you know, some of the important things to bear in mind are to get yourself out there, put your work out there, get on Twitter, be professional about it, but get yourself out there and get your reputation going, I think. You want to leave a good impression of yourself with everyone you meet, and also just online, you want to leave a good impression. And, you know, it's, you know, not the best person to reference, but, you know, Kevin Spacey said, you know, send the elevator back down when you've ridden it up, and I think that's always a lovely sentiment, even though it's not a lovely person, but, you know, so just kind of throw down the rope for other people to help climb up, and
for sure,
you know, like you said, stay humble and don't think so much of yourself that you're like, oh, well, I'm above this now, and blah blah blah, and that kind of thing. So yes, online presence, get your work out there, don't hide away, because networking is about meeting other really cool people more than it is anything else. And to just like throw business cards at people is not networking. That's just being an asshole, and no one cares about that. And it's not going to lead to anything positive. It's more about just connecting with people who are, you know, at the end of the day, love the same things you love and are similar like you, and I think there's a lovely thing that when you get to like university or school where, or even work where you have all these people that are similar to you, you kind of go, holy crap, there's like more people who like the same stuff as me and are as dorky as I am, are into all the same things, and oh, they've all gathered in this one spot. Isn't that really cool? They're all in the same.
It's like a high school reunion at GDC every year, so
yeah. And to keep learning. You've obviously had an amazing career, but that's not just through luck. That's through you keeping pushing all your skills and not just resting on your laurels, and to keep learning and keep pushing your stuff and to work on what you love doing, because that's going to lead to more stuff that you love doing, which seems worth it to me. And getting that first job, even though it might not be what you wanted, just go take it, because you can still learn a hell of a lot from it, and you can still be working in your own stuff in the meantime. And getting that first job is the hardest, and you don't have to go straight to your dream studio. I think like when I got to uni, it was like I have to get and it was all these like the best of the best, and I was like, if I don't get to this, I haven't done it right. But then that's not how that works, and there's so many other great projects and studios to work on, and just because you haven't got to the end goal doesn't mean you've failed in any way, and you can still work towards that. You've got plenty of time, you don't need to rush into it. Work on your passions, make goals and be accountable to them, be a great person to work with, because that's good for your reputation and also just for your freaking life. Not having everyone on the team hate you is that's pretty nice. But I think what you said also is really nice about having the self-awareness for both your work and your personality, and knowing that you can keep improving on that, and knowing when you're getting burnt out or grumpy or whatever, and to be like, okay, I'm having a grumpy day, so maybe I need to take a break, and try not to like shout at anyone or whatever, and to keep learning that from studio to studio, or even day to day, to keep that going. By the way, I was going to say beforehand I started this rant is that now's the time to go ask all those questions, so get on that, because we will get to that in just a sec. Make sure you're talking to your leads and communicating your needs to them, because that's important, and often a lot of the same issues come up, and your team and your leads are going to be fully aware of a lot of the same problems. That's why we like talking about imposter syndrome and burnout and all this stuff, because some point in your life you're probably going to have to deal with all the same stuff that all your colleagues have dealt with, and when you actually talk about it, you actually find out that you're not a unique special snowflake, and that actually most people have to deal with this stuff, and they might have some great advice or some things to help you out and make sure that you could get back on your feet quicker. And therapy and exercise, they're good. Who would have thought?
Sorry?
Therapy and exercise are good things, and just be yourself. And I think that's
you summarized that really well.
Huh?
You summarized all that really, really well.
Awesome. Yeah, Lisa's
what
great
I do.
at doing that. Your summaries are awesome.
Sorry, you're actually going to make me blush.
You should do GDC talk someday.
You know where to find me. No, man, I always love doing the show, because I always get stressful, like, doing, like, oh my god, I gotta do the show, it's gonna be great, and then, it's the only reason that this show got started is because we'd have all these chats behind the scenes, and no one would ever see them, and we were talking about the same stuff, and I'd always read like all these books, and they'd all say the same thing, and that's how I'd learn that's what I need to be working on. And I'm like, there's all these people with all this knowledge, and there's people like in Anim State where they're doing this stuff, and there's people like what's the one off, what's it called, a keyframe of mind. Those girls are freaking awesome, and they talk about those real issues. But that everyone can relate to. Sorry?
You'll get to meet them at GDC. So.
But and it's just really cool to have people with this much experience, and to be able to learn from people like you is always super inspiring to me. But enough about that. Thank you so much for answering all our questions. Hopefully now we can answer some of the chats. So if you guys have anything you want to ask the God of War animator herself, and also EA Sports, Company Heroes, Hitman, Mortal Kombat, Just Cause 3, and Gears of War, and then here we go. So I'm just going to start from the top and see if I can find anything. Okay, question from Jazz Master J. Not much focus on facial dialogue animation in Melissa's reels. If I'm aiming to be a character gameplay animator, is it worth it to work towards a reel-worthy dialogue animation. So basically, your reel doesn't have a ton of like dialogue animation. Do they need it to be in games?
I think that it's always nice to have a
Oh, you cut out. Sorry, say that again.
Tess? Can you
Yeah,
hear me?
you're good. You're good.
Yep.
Okay. I think it's always great to show diversity in your reel. So like, if even though you want to do game, have like one strong dialogue acting piece to show that you can do it. Like my lead will point this out. Like he wants, like we hire most for gameplay anyway. We want to see mechanics, but he wants to see personality in those mechanics.
Yeah.
So if you can even just like mix the two, like you're doing an action piece that has a little bit of acting at the start of it or whatever,
Yeah.
you know, do it that way, definitely.
Yeah, 100%.
But don't completely specialize, you know, like lean, but like show that you can do other things, show you can do different styles even.
Yeah.
But obviously that's a lot of work. So, you know, just be a little selective of how you do that.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, I don't think my dialogue stuff was as strong at uni. I found that, I don't know if everyone else has this, but I found the kind of quieter, shyer animators were really good at the like super cinematic kind of detailed emotion shots.
Okay.
And the like vibrant bodily me animators
were
like
move everything all the time.
they were way better at the like the body mechanic stuff. So I found that there was this kind of contrast where there was kind of these different skills. So when I think I did my first reel, I don't think I had any. I had like a lot of acting stuff, but I don't think I had like a specific dialogue piece. But that's because I wasn't so strong at that, and I kept working on that in the side because it's still something I wanted to be good at. So I think, you know, everyone's going to have their strengths that they lean towards, and there's nothing wrong with that, especially as your first reel. But like you said, you can get a hell of a lot of acting in a body mechanics piece if you go about it the right way. And I think that's a great place to start. What do you think?
Well, even like yourself, Melissa, like you did. I'm sure your first reel had a lot of mechanics and acting and everything. But even afterwards, you went to school again to brush up on that a bit more, right? Like, was it the film course that you went to, or?
Yeah, with Animation Mentor, I did their film track. So I started with like a body, like acting and body mechanics semester, and then by the end semester, you were doing like 2 dialogue pieces, I think. So yeah, it was like it's
tiring.
An area that I get a lot of exposure to at work. Because when you're working like AAA games, you tend to specialize, right? So it's, you know, it was something I knew was points that I, you know, had to work on. So
yeah, I will say a quick point about the going and doing animation courses after you're already in the industry is it's hella tough. I've been there, and I was on the God, which one was it? Was it iAnimate? Anyway, one of them, and it was a 3-month-long course, and I had to do it after work, and it was literally like I had no life for 3 months. But what's like literally, it was like, oh, do you want to go? No, nope, I gotta go home. Bye. And that was like my life for 3 months because trying to keep up with people that had all day to work on it, the quality was better, but just the time. So it was a hell of a thing. But what's really cool about that is people usually appreciate the fact that you're still learning. Most companies that I've talked to are not like looking down on it unless they're companies that do a ton of overtime, and then it's like, do we really want you going home? And you know, but everyone that I've been with has always been super supportive of me doing extra stuff. In fact, when I was with Creative Assembly, they paid for the course, and a lot of companies will do an education budget. So if it's the sort of thing where you're thinking, oh, I want to go into industry, but I still have these other things I want to work on, these other courses I want to do, a lot of the times in you know, bigger industry companies, they will have an education budget for books and courses and that kind of stuff that you can take advantage of. And all that I had to do was just communicate like, hey, just so you know, work's first, obviously, and I'm not going to like jeopardize anything at work to do this stuff, but it's going to make me a better animator for you. And if you can give me like a 3-month period where I'm not going to be able to do any overtime unless it's like super important, and then of course I'll drop it, but you know, I'm going to be going home and doing this stuff. Is that cool? Are you happy with that? Is there a 3-month period where we're going to be not as crazy that I could do that? And they were like, yeah, go for it, love it, go do the thing. So you know, it's always worth talking to your leads and stuff about this kind of thing, because generally they're supportive. And then at least I think it was one of the things I said in my interview actually with GE. I was like, just so you know, I've been doing this course and I probably want to do more of that stuff and do my own stuff at home, and I have no problem working overtime, but I also want to be going home and improving myself as an animator. And if you guys are the sort of people that don't have time for that ever and are like always working till 10 at night, then I would like to know that up front, because that's something that's important for me to know as an animator, because you know, reasons and things. And yeah, I don't know where I was going with that, but communicate to your companies and they might be able to help you out even
totally
with it.
Like you might be like, no, but like unless you ask, you don't, right?
Right.
So,
and almost all of them have some kind of educational budget that you can get some of the course paid for. And you know, they're expensive courses and you probably would have already done school or degree and have, you know, stuff, but they're, you know, companies want their animators and their, you know, employees to get better. And a company not supporting that is an interesting choice, but most of them are 100% behind you improving your skills. And while it is a hell of a thing, you know, even our own Sedona was doing a course, and then they went into heavy crunch mode, and she was like, I just couldn't finish the course because I had to drop it and do work. And that is a possibility, but you know, at the same time, I always think that people trying to improve themselves is very admirable. If they can try and do work and improve themselves, it's like, wow, okay, whew, highest of high fives, that's great. Because you'll still improve at work, but to get to do your, like you said, your passion work at home, if you know you do body mechanics all day at work, maybe you want to come home and do some subtle cinematic stuff. Or maybe if you are doing all, you know, biped stuff at work, you can come home and just animate creatures, and that will probably lead to more work that is closer to what you want to be doing anyway. So
totally.
Cool. I think that's that question done. What we got? I don't know if this is a question. Is it tell me a question? Yeah, I think Broken Tangent's asking an animation question. So he says, Melissa, as you've gotten more experience, has your ability to tell production how long you need for an animation improved? He is awful at judging how long an animation is going to take for production schedule. So have you, in your 17 years of experience, been able to more accurately predict how long an animation is going to take?
Yeah, I think definitely over time better at doing that, but I work with motion capture a lot in my career, and I might look at a scene and be like, oh, I think this will take like 2 weeks to do, and then while I'm in the scene, other things will come up and suddenly it's taking 4 weeks.
Yeah.
That's not great, but like game development has a lot of
hashtag game development.
Yeah. It's unfortunately the nature of the industry is like you just don't know when things might pop up. So like I think, you know, over time you'll get better at it, but like if you're running into these things where you're like, oh no, I think it's gonna take longer, just communicate that straight away to production and they can try to find ways to help you out or whatever. You know, like there's, you know,
flexing those communication skills early on is definitely a big thing across the board, you know.
Yeah, don't just be like, oh no, it's going to take weeks and now I got to stay here like 14 hours or whatever to get it done.
Right. Yeah.
Tell your producer immediately, and you know, whether they get to help you or they're like making cuts or whatever, like that'll be the best stuff.
The earlier on you can communicate that it's going to take longer, the better, because the more flexibility they have to get stuff done. I've definitely found my predictions have gotten so accurate. I'm like, this will take me like
to the second,
to the day. But then I usually don't work on super long animations. If I was working on, you know, usually my stuff takes half a day to a day nowadays, because it's just like. But I don't know. Do you find that, Henry? You've kind of gotten
I've
so
gotten
quick as
better
well.
because I've usually when I do estimates now, I estimate like buffer time, or I look at
Okay,
parts
buffer
parts
time. I like that.
where or where there's things that could go wrong. Like I'll be like, hey, there's a chance that this part something could go wrong, or there's a dependency here or so. So usually that's where the buffer time goes for. And so then if things go wrong, then sweet, we have time allocated to fix that. If not, then ahead of schedule, even better. I can sit back, relax. No, I can move on
Yeah.
to something else. But but
Yeah,
usually now, when I get like a certain shot or a feature, like it's I try to identify kind of what's most likely going to go smoothly, what's going to break down, and what is kind of unknowns, and try to kind of figure out those unknowns as quickly as possible. Help me um, with my estimates.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Do you do the same thing with certain things, with certain shots,
Who?
or
That's
yeah, either of you? Do you guys?
Yeah. The fact that you mentioned the buffer, a thing most productions should, incorporate in the numbers is like for anything to go wrong. There should always be a certain percent of extra time that you
and the
put
longer
in.
the overall time is, the longer the buffer time should be, because there's more time for stuff to go wrong, or it's harder to guess the longer the task is, how accurate that is, I think. So if you're like, oh, it's probably about a month, like just, I don't know, add a week or two on, whereas if it's like a day, I know you only need to add a day or so on. But I've found that something that I've learned is, I think when I first started getting going, I was so worried about not being quick enough. But I should have been more worried about having the quality bar up. So I'd have people be like, oh, you can take more time on it. And I'd be like, no, I'm done. It's done. And they'd be like, okay, well, thanks, Elise. And I wouldn't understand that. They were kind of saying, well, you could kind of make it look a bit better if you took some more time. And I wasn't getting that. I was like, no, I did the job. It's all great. Woohoo, done. And I kind of wish that I would... the thing is I found that your speed goes up so quickly that it's so not an issue after, I don't know, I'm such a quick animator that it's never, you're not working quick enough. And I feel like it's usually more of an issue of, I want to give myself enough time that I can put the quality in, because I can get it done quick, but can I get it done quick? And I feel like you don't want to underestimate how much time that polish time takes. And if it's something that's important, you don't want to say yes to too many extra things. I feel like in game development, sometimes it's not a case of can you get X done, but can you get X done, and then we'd also like Y and Z and A and B, and if you can get this other thing, and it's like you've got to know where to draw the line and say, I'd love to do that stuff, but I have this much time, and if I say yes to everything, it's all going to be at like 50% done instead of it all being at 80-90% done. And I feel like there's a line.
I wanted to add to that like sometimes, because production, like you only have so much time, so sometimes you do have to work that way where you're like, I need to get all this work done to this level so that everything functions, and then schedule additional time for like, okay, we're going to come back and bring it to this level, but at least it's all functioning.
You got to get that test version in for people to be like, it's good enough, and please go fix it afterwards.
And another way is also like choosing like, well, this animation is going to play like 90% of the time versus this one 30% of the time. So you want to focus more on the more important things than like the lesser things.
Absolutely.
So give and take. Not everything can be like 100% amazing.
Right, and it's worse for the game if it's like that. Like, would you spend 5 times as much time working on a step animation as an attack animation? No, not if it's going to be played 0.1 of the time, whereas you're going to see an attack over and over and over again, or whatever it is for your game, I think you do learn to prioritize so much better after a little while in the industry, what things are important, and I think that's why I like having a couple tasks at one point, because I'm like, I know this thing's way more important than this thing. So if this is like 50% quality, but this is 100%, it's going to look so much better in game than if I do both of them to 75, blah, 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 that kind of thing. But good time management is definitely an underrated skill. That is.
I wish they taught that somehow in school.
I mean, oh man, I kind of want to show. When I was like looking up my like questions, my interview questions, which I've literally not even looked at this whole time, I came across at uni for the final project. They were like, here is the schedule, and our lecturer Martin had done an Excel document, like a Google Sheets Excel document, that was every single day until the final deadline. And he'd been like, this is the alpha date, and this is where you should be this far done. And he was like, you need to go in and you need to put down something every single day. And if you like don't get that done that day, then you go to the next day and you say, now I need to get this done. You make changes as you go, but whatever it is, you've got to make sure you have cutoffs where you say this has to be done now, because you can't just if you have 3 months and you're managing your own time and you say, okay, I'm gonna have the rig done in 3 weeks, and then you take 6 weeks, that's going to make a hell of a change to your project. And sometimes you need to say, okay, well, this is the schedule I set, and if I don't keep to this, the whole thing's going to go down. So I need to have cutoffs where I say it's got to be just good enough, and then if I get a bunch of time at the end, I'll go back and fix stuff. But that was it popped up, and I was like, man, I like every day I was like, I'm going to write down. Oh, that helps so much. But yeah, it was cool. Let's see. Do we have any other questions? I think that one's done. He's breakdown. How long do you need for an animation? I usually multiply my guess or the guess of my animators by twice the time. I don't do that, but I feel like mine's more knowing what to say no to than it is.
Sorry, what was the question?
He's saying it was just a statement that he usually multiplies the time by 2 of how much he expects he needs and how much he actually needs, which is
right.
And you have people that want to give too much and they just say yes to everything, and then they're here till 11 at night, and it's like, that's not healthy. You need to work out a balance of what's expected, and the better you communicate that with the rest of the team is, that's a positive. General question, is there going to be an Animates meetup at GDC? I hadn't thought about it. I mean, there's only going to be...
It's David?
Me and
David.
David's there.
GDC,
Is Sedona gone?
Well, I don't think so. I don't think so. You're not going, are you, Henry? Oh, hello, Henry? Oh god, my internet's died. Hello? Buffering. Oh god. Guys? Tune into the Animates for tech issues. Are we back? Oh dear. We've broken everything. This is good. This is good. We broke the Can you guys still hear me? You must be able to. How the server's down?
Elise.
Yeah.
Discord is down for me too.
Oh, okay. Okay. The Discord has died. I'm just going to check if there was any other questions, but I think unfortunately Discord's gone. My question is about online courses. Trying to decide between iAnimate and Animate for game animation. Do you see any great consistent work coming out of either one? The way I decided how to do this was I looked at each of their reels they put out and just looked at what was my favorite one that was best applied to what I was wanting to learn, and then I tallied that up with how much each course cost and the time length, and then that's how I figured that one out. How much animation keyframe do you do in AAA development? Completely depends on which company and which project you're working on, and which characters you're working on. We could talk about that another time. But yeah, I think I'm going to have to wrap it up because everything's died. But thank you so much to Henry and Melissa. The reel is amazing, and as far as GDC goes, I will be putting up on Twitter where I'm at, and if people want to come me up, that's great, but don't think we'll be doing a specific meetup because we're still kind of in baby stages. But I'll be around, and if you want to come say hi, I'd very much welcome it. But until next week, we'll see you.
It's back.
It's back. Hang on. Are we going to have everyone pop back in? Hello? I don't think so. I think we should call it. Thank you guys for coming. We'll see you next week.